Mr. Flacco, can you take roll?
Lori Kniske.
Here.
Linda Grassi.
Here.
Scott Fishel.
Here.
Tom Heck.
Here.
Jennifer Harden is absent.
We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On behalf of the board, I'd like to welcome all students, staff, parents, and interested community members to tonight's Board of Education meeting. I would like to remind everyone that this is a meeting of the Board of Education held in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for public comment during the meeting in the public participation section on the agenda. First on the agenda, I make a motion to approve the minutes from April 27, 2023, May 11, 2023. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Rossi. Any discussion? Can you call the roll?
Lori Kniske.
Aye.
Linda Grassi.
Aye.
Scott Fishel.
Aye.
Tom Heck.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next on the agenda is old business. I don't believe anybody submitted anything for discussion in old business. All right, that brings us to new business. And again, I do not believe there was anything submitted to discuss under new business. Correct? All right. Next is our liaison committee and liaison reports. Superintendent's business advisory liaison. We did have a business advisory committee meeting. We did it via Zoom. What was really nice is Dr. Bassich brought in students that participated in our program with the city of Painesville, and also the instructor, Mr. Miller, right?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to make sure. So they came in and they told us about their experience. There were 3 students that were able to come and meet with us. They talked about how they were able to see all the different opportunities that exist within the city of Painesville as far as job opportunities. And after they had a chance to review all those opportunities, they actually worked in one of the departments. And they talked about their experience doing that. They all were really excited, a very positive experience. The Business Advisory Committee then offered other opportunities or other suggestions for possibilities for the same kind of opportunities for students next year, maybe in some different industries. So they are looking at that. I think the program was a success of doing that. So
Absolutely, and if you would like to know more about it, you should get a copy of today's News Herald, because there is a great story in there with a giant picture.
great.
I put over Bryson.
Thank you.
He covered it for us.
I will have to pull that. Yeah.
Yes, it was, well, I have like 17 copies in my office. So.
Okay.
I got you
So
covered.
just grab one. Okay. The other thing we did speak about, I've been talking about the profile of a student. Dr. Bassich had an opportunity to interact with some administration from different schools, and he's learning some different things from them and how they put theirs together to make it more of a interactive, or be able to apply to the students to really make it very valuable to them. So he's learning a little bit more, kind of understanding what they've done. And hopefully here over the summer, we'll start to see that come together and have something new as far as the profile of a student. And that was all for Business Advisory Committee. Any questions? All right, that brings us to Curriculum and Programming Committee and Alumni Association Liaison, Mr. Fishel.
I'll do the alumni first because that'll be quick. Golf outing on Sunday, June 11th at Painesville Country Club, and more foursomes are welcome. And for the curriculum, Curriculum Director Malakar explained that the course of study review and the course of study information is an ongoing work. And would you like to just give us a quick update?
I will. And then we'll see. That's what I was going to say, okay, because we had talked about me talking during Jim's presentation.
Well, you can do real quick. And
Yeah,
then-
no, it's just very quickly. So the course of study documents are coming together fairly quickly, as I had anticipated. The teachers, at least the core subjects, electives where you have a teacher that might be doing 8 courses of study on their own, like Mrs. Miller teaches 8 different classes, so there was no way she could possibly do 8 courses of study at a time. But the core subjects will be done, and most of the electives. We have to figure out how you guys want to approach reviewing the documents that are going to be, there's a lot, clearly there's a lot of them, and they are multiple pages each. So I don't know how we want to approach that process. I don't know if we want to run it through the curriculum committee only, if we want, if everybody can clearly have online access. That's not, I can make copies for those, you'll get a stack of papers. We could do one subject at a time. We could do, probably to approach a subject at a time is probably the best way to do it. So you can see them K through 12 and kind of see how vertically they're aligned, you know what I mean, and how they kind of fit together rather than maybe doing a grade band kind of thing. But I don't know, come the end of June, we're gonna be ready for you guys to start reviewing them. Clearly not necessarily to approve them, but to start reviewing them.
Can I make a suggestion that
Absolutely.
you guys do it similarly to the way we did the RFQs in the buildings and grounds, that you bring it to the committee and then that committee determines how we approach that? I think it's
So I, as Dr. McLaughlin was talking, I was kind of going back and forth in my mind as well on that very topic, of whether it be a committee responsibility or a broader board. The one thing that I would say is, since we have not really done this before as a board, I guess I'd like a little bit more hands-on personally as a board member than just outsourcing to the curriculum director. Maybe we do a special meeting on whatever the first topic is, we get ourselves acquainted with it, and then maybe after that we go ahead and outsource to the curriculum committee. But I personally, I just, I've never done it before. I would like more than just taking the advice and consent of the curriculum committee.
maybe that's not what I guess that's maybe not what I meant. I just thought that maybe that they could look at it and determine how we get it, how it's presented to us. Do you know what I'm saying?
okay.
Like for review, because
I don't know that we
Okay.
kind of talked about that, but we're open to ideas, and I can normally organize the bejesus out of anything, and I don't know how to get all of this information to you.
And
So
let
that you
me
can
add to that. What this is a fairly documented explanation of everything that's being taught. Now, it's not every word, every line, everything, every statement, but it is an outline, but it's going to be comprehensive. So it's going to be that much printout of papers. And so it's not so much for anyone to say, oh, we suggest this be approved. It just is what it is, and it's to be absorbed by people or not. And it's going to be available to the public. It'll be available to the full board. You were mentioning, you could print off copies. Some of that may have been because in our meeting I said I'm more of a hard paper reader instead of a computer reader. So I'll read through it. I don't know how much that's going to mean as far as me recommending anything to everyone else on the board, because each person will read and take in as much as they want or not. I think it's a great idea, having an overview on the first, whatever one we choose, and go over it and see what it is, and everyone can see how to read it and go from there. That's just my suggestion. I think it's going to be way too much to go through completely.
What if we do that
For
in
everybody,
June?
I mean,
What
I'm
if
gonna
I
do it.
take like 10 minutes in June, put one up there as an example, kind of we go through that, and then you all would have online access. If you need it printed out or wanted it printed out, I could do that. But then I could walk you through kind of how it looks, do you know what I mean, and how to read it and what's laid out, and then you can dive in as much as you want to in whatever subject we choose first.
Okay. So we are, as a board, we are responsible to approve the curriculum, so we would have to vote on it. If we can do chunks by month, maybe that'd be the way to go. And it's voluminous, is what Mr. Fisher was saying. So we can do our best to go through and ask questions and understand. But ultimately, I do think that we need to actually have a motion and a vote.
And so you're saying a motion and a vote on sections?
Ultimately, the whole curriculum. But
Well,
we can
why don't
break
we
it
do
down.
subject? We'll do by
Yeah.
subject, I think that makes the most sense. It makes the most sense also to start with either English or math. So you decide which one you would like to start
So
with,
why English or math?
because those are our tested subjects all the way through.
That's
So-
perfect.
So Although we have tests in, some social studies, 'cause we have government, we have history, but those are our most intense, accountable subjects.
That's a great suggestion.
That's why you pay me for my great suggestions.
And after we review the first subject, we might have suggestions on how we approach the next ones, right?
Yes,
So I think
that's-
it's just an unknown right now.
Right, and we're setting the precedent for future boards to look at. So I think we kind of probably need to spend more time this go around than maybe next, but who knows?
Yeah. So I also think that if we wanted the most streamlined one to approach first, it would be math, because math is pretty straightforward. And you could do that kind of as your test, you know what I mean? Everybody doing that together, I can show that, because that's fairly straightforward. You have a topic, you have your inputs and what you want the kids to do to show what they've learned. And then maybe we do English second, because you'll be more familiar with the documents, having read through the math ones first. Does that kind of make sense? We'll start with math.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah,
sound
we
good?
gotta start somewhere.
Okay, so we'll start with math in June. Like I said, I'll have Jim put a little spot for me on the agenda in June, and we'll go through one of those documents, and then they'll be accessible to you to start to review, and we'll go from there.
Right.
Will we have enough time to do that at a board meeting?
For me to show you how to walk through it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's not gonna take me longer than 10 minutes to show you. I'm not gonna show you all 12 of them,
Yeah,
or,
okay.
15 or 20 or whatever in math. I'll just pick one, and we'll kind of go through that so you can see how they're laid out, and then you're gonna have to start to peruse them individually.
Okay.
So I think 10 minutes will be fine.
Okay, and then Cheryl was talking about a program that was piloted in Riverview called Branching Minds. Is that right, Cheryl?
It will be
It will be piloted, okay. And then looking to also do Lamouth as the next step, helps with intervention and progress monitoring. And then we might be looking at the second half of the special ed profile and see how that came out in the future. And that's it for curriculum.
Thank you. Next is Buildings and Grounds Operations Committee and Legislative Liaison, Mr. Hack.
Sure, so we had a meeting on the 8th of May, just some routine things were talked about. We did go through there's an annual inspection of all the boilers in the buildings, and we passed. There was a test of the fire suppression systems, the sprinkler systems where we have them, and those passed. We talked about the ongoing situation with the ball fields, the baseball fields. And again, we also received an email from the RBI club, and as has been said in previous meetings, the fields really are unsatisfactory at the present time. There's no two ways about it. The email pointed that out, and that is a fact. Unfortunately, from a board perspective in spending money on ball fields, we need to have a better sense of what the long-term utilization of the site's going to be, if the site's going to be, before we actually invest significant money. And that's not a good answer, and I can understand why people in the RBI club would be unhappy, but it would make no sense to invest a lot of money into the fields as they currently are configured if we ended up in a situation where we used that space for something else. So that's where we are. I know Mr. Arlesic and his team has worked very hard to get the fields in as good a shape as possible, but I believe they called it the bowl in the email or something similar to that. And it's true. I did. One time we went out and I went to the center field, and literally, as you look over second base towards home plate, if there's a batter there, I could probably only see him from the knees up. The outfield there's a swell there. There's just no two ways about it. But that's, I acknowledge, understood, but we are not able to do anything short term on that until we really figure out the site situation. We also talked about some new vehicles that were going to be requested to support maintenance and possibly some additional custodians. We also had a conversation about the possibility of moving a modular unit from Willoughby Eastlake which they no longer are utilizing and possibly bringing it into our, really to Buckeye. And I know that there was a lot of research and other things that were going on. So Mr. Arlesi, are you in a position to quickly go over that, or is that something we should wait till the June Buildings and Grounds and talk about potential ways forward at the June meeting?
And the June meeting will be better, so I'll have more information I can share at that time. I'm gathering information now.
Okay, terrific. And the point is that we do have a space crunch. We hear that, Lima Charlie, loud and clear, and we are investigating some things that might be done short term to help alleviate some of the space issues, especially at Buckeye. But that's in development or still ongoing progress. We also met separately to go over the replies to the RFQ about doing the engineering assessment of the campus, Lamouth, Melridge, and Buckeye. And we did have a special meeting earlier this month as well to go over the recommendation from the Buildings and Grounds, but we did do that, and that's on tonight's agenda. The recommendation was for Bialowski, the Bialowski firm, to do that assessment for a variety of reasons. If you're interested, I think it was May 11th or something where we had the meeting. If you're interested in the details, you can listen to that meeting. Mrs. Grassi, you have anything?
No. Covered it all.
That's my report.
Thank you. Next was the Policy Committee and Booster Organization Liaison. Mrs. Harden is not here, but I believe there's a policy meeting tomorrow, possibly.
7:30.
So I don't know if there's any other update. Right.
I don't have anything.
Okay, perfect. All right, that brings us to our superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. A lot of good things going on, as tradition would have it. A lot of different activities, year-end events. Kids are having a lot of fun in our schools last few weeks here. And I want to highlight a few of the things that are some are annual events and some aren't. But the first one is the painting of the plows. We have our RHS students painting the plows in Painesville Township. We painted them on May 12th. The plows are displayed at community events and parades and festivals throughout the summer. This is a tradition that was started about a decade ago, from what I remember, with a partnership with Painesville Township and the trustees. Groups of 3 and 4 students will brainstorm to come up with a theme and then create a design. And when the time comes, they collaboratively paint the plows. And it's very nice to see them, not only in the summer, but also utilizing what they're really designed to do, that is to plow snow. Our students are all excited about the plows. Our Art 4 students with the tiles in the hallway, and we do the hydrants on occasions as well. So just wanted to point it out to you. We typically have coverage in the News Herald, but the kids do really nice job.
What do they do with those in the off-season? And when they, do they paint over last year's designs?
I don't know.
They can't get that
I don't know. To be honest with you, I always thought that, I've seen the kids paint it and everything else, except they're just putting on general paint. And you would think that after a while, after a couple of plows, it would be gone. And I think whatever they use is pretty hard.
They wash them off and then reprime them.
Is that what they do?
Is that what they do? Because I thought, God, they've done it for so many years now, how could they have them in?
Yeah. I also wanted to congratulate Andrew Leopold. He's a Merit Scholarship Award winner. The funny thing about it, I'm just going to say it, the Leopold kids are just plain smart. This is not the only one that we've acknowledged his accomplishments in our district. But the Leopold name should be familiar with the board because we've honored many of the kids over the years for their accomplishments. But we want to congratulate Andrew. He's a senior this year. He's the winner of the National Merit $2,500 scholarship. And Andrew is one of 2,500 Merit Scholar designees chosen from the talent pool of more than 15,000 students finalists in the National Merit Scholarship Program. So I just want to acknowledge it. Doesn't happen very often, and it's quite an accomplishment. He's a well-deserving young man. Also, we had our Literacy Lineman program this past week. Players from the Riverside football team would visit all the elementary schools and read and interact with the students. This is a service-based activity. As everybody knows, we had a great football team this past year, and dare I say, it was probably, if not the best, one of the best in our school's 74-year history. But our student athletes engage in many other activities throughout the school year. And the Literacy Lineman program allows positive interaction with the elementary students while sharing the love of reading. And not only do the young kids have a great time having the older kids come and read to them, but the older kids also have a great time going to the elementary schools and reading to our students. We also had the number one club last week. Number one club allows students to pick the teacher that has influenced them the most, he gave them the biggest, most positive impact over the years. And it's a really great way for our students to express their appreciation for that one particular teacher that meant a lot to them in their educational career. On the left, we have Mr. Hartman, who's the art teacher at the campus. And on the right, we have Mrs. Tinney, who's a fifth grade teacher at Buckeye. But obviously, they weren't the only two that were honored. There were many other faculty members that were honored as well. But we just chose two pictures to put in there. We also had our military signing today. I would just like to congratulate and acknowledge our students who so resolutely decided to serve our great nation. These students were able to speak on their own behalf of the reasons why they wanted to join the military branches. And I have to say, I was so impressed with how they came to that decision and how articulate these students were. It was amazing just listening to them. Jake Catlett, we have two 11th graders in this group too, but Jake Catlett he's enlisting in the Army National Guard. Griffin Demshar, the Air Force. Kyle Lanning, the Army. Tommy Nichols, Coast Guard. Matthew Lehner, the Marines, ROTC. Andrew Malinowski, Marines. Jacob Schultz, Marines. And Vanessa Valadavia, Army Reserves. And I'm sorry to say, Mr. Hack, we had no Navy enlistees today.
I need to talk to the next class to make sure that they understand the importance of the Navy.
We always have a Navy enlistee, for some reason, not this year. I almost stopped the program. And asked one.
Well, next year will no doubt be dominated by Navy.
Yeah, that's right. Well, also during this program, we dedicated a prisoner of war chair. It's out of a program. It's a really neat program. It's from a group called the Rolling Thunder. And it's a national chair of honor program intended to support Rolling Thunder's main mission of bringing daily reminders of the POW/MIA issued to cities and towns, big and small, across the nation. A POW/MIA chair in any locations to remain perpetually empty, to help people remember that even though our soldiers are not here, there's still a space for them. And that's the message we wanted to convey as well out of our community, not only with our community, but also our school, that this chair represents a place for those people who unfortunately have not come back yet. And we're going to do the same. Like I said here, there's a movable chair and there's a fixed chair. We have a fixed chair at the Wall of Honor in the back, and we have a movable chair that will find its way to many of our school's events throughout the school year next year. And it was a really, really great thing. I have to say, Mrs. Bartholomew, a former teacher in our district, who has retired, has really spent a lot of time helping us organize these events, and a lot of these things I would hope would happen so without her, but I know with her they would surely happen. And she spoke today too and did a great job for for our district as well. Spring sports did real well this spring. Baseball finished the season 17-9. Softball 20-5. They were also on the list of best of the crop throughout the year, or throughout the season. Boys lacrosse 10-7, girls lacrosse 7 wins, and the boys and girls track and field winners of WRC, several district champs, many athletes participating in regionals this week. Talked to one student out in the overflow parking lot. He was getting ready and he was very excited about being in the regionals. I can't remember what event. He wasn't a thrower. He was a pretty lean kid, but he was very excited about it. I'm also gonna say that this past year in athletics, we basically own the WRC. This crop of student athletes really good this year. And I'm hoping that continues for next year. That concludes my report. I did ask Mr. Renwick, our technology director, very busy department, collecting Chromebooks and closing out the year and, working on security cameras and other things. I asked him, we haven't heard from him in a while, and I asked him to give us a quick update to the board about some of the things that are going on in the district. Do you know how to use this?
Before I begin, I want to introduce Mike Culver. Mike is the Assistant Director of Technology, and thought it'd be a good idea for him to come to a board meeting. All right, we'll get going. You didn't see it. Okay, so beginning of this year, all teachers at Parkside and Riverview received new notebooks. They're running Windows 11, and the beginning of the next school year, teachers at the Riverside campus will also receive brand new notebook computers. This is part of an ongoing thing. We have to have a replacement cycle. Everything we have is running Windows 10, and Windows 10 is going to be end of life soon, so we don't want to try to replace them all at the same time. That would be a nightmare, so we've created a replacement cycle. We're also upgrading the PA system here at the main campus. We already did Buckeye and Melridge Elementary. We moved over to a thing called a Formacast, which is, besides being a PA system, it's also an emergency management system. So in case we have if we have to have a lockdown or anything like that, it can notify everyone, police, fire department, any mechanical doors we can lock down. We're putting strobe lights on the outside of the doors so people know not to come in. It also works over our existing phones and our old existing speakers. Our old analog speakers get tied in together and they become one speaker. So we'll have like one giant speaker at the high school level, one in the junior high, plus we're adding IP speakers throughout the building. So we'll improve on that, and it's a lot less expensive than buying a whole new PA system. Over a 10-year period, it would be half of the cost of buying a new PA system. That would be, end of life in 10 years. Over the summer, we're going to be upgrading all the cameras and adding cameras to Buckeye and Melridge. We have a lot of old cameras here on campus that just don't work right anymore, and we're also changing the software we use. The current software we use here and at Lamouth is called Acuity. They just can't keep up with the needs of the newer cameras, and it's slow, and it's very choppy, and uses a lot of bandwidth. So we're changing over to a newer system called Hanwha, which is Japanese. It works really well, it uses very low bandwidth, and it meets our requirements for insurance. Insurance companies are now requiring multi-factor authentication for just about everything we have. So
What is multi-factor authentication?
It's two ways to log in, so you don't have a hacker getting into your account or getting into our cameras or anything like that. So besides using a password, it's using a device or a fingerprint or an eye.
Or PIN.
Okay.
Or PIN.
It's when you try to log into something, sometimes you have to get a PIN from an email or something.
Correct,
Some-
or
some-
a text from a cell phone, that's what it is.
Okay, thank
The
you.
easiest way to explain it. So, and the current software we use does not support that. And they don't see doing it anywhere in the near future, unfortunately. But I do want to point out that Parkside and Riverview, they do have a different piece of software that they use, and that was put in with the construction. And that one will support multi-factor. They said within 6 months, so hopefully. it'll be done. The beginning of last year, we started replacing the old broken smart boards with interactive displays in the elementary buildings. The cost of those is less than buying a new smart board and a projector. They've got a much better picture, and they work wirelessly, so there's no wires running all over the place. We're going to continue that instead of buying new smart boards. The cost of projectors has gone way up. Since COVID, I don't know what happened. The $400 projector is now $900. So we're looking at purchasing large televisions to replace the projectors on the campus, and we're going to continue to do that in the near future. It just seems to work better. The smart TVs, you could buy a 65-inch TV or 75-inch TV for under $800, and a smart board is, well, that was really old, but the newer smart boards are $1,500 to $1,800, and then you've got another $800 or $900 for a projector. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to continue with that technology. So we're moving towards TVs for the older grades and then interactive displays for the lower grades.
With that, so in the smart boards, teachers will often, give their lecture right on them. So in this
Correct.
new environment, how does that work?
The interactive displays work exactly the same. As a matter of fact, they can use the same software that the teachers are using right now. So they wouldn't have to recreate their lesson plans. With the older grades, a lot of them aren't using the touch, and they're not writing on them. They can project their computer screen right to the television.
Thank you.
I'm going to talk briefly about Chromebook. We repaired, when I wrote this, 1,400 Chromebooks this year. That number's up about 420 from last year. And 40% of the repairs were from the middle school. And that just, I've seen that ever since I've been doing this, that certain grade level is just more susceptible to damage. We're finally on a proper replacement cycle for Chromebooks. So every year, first grade gets a Chromebook, and seventh grade get a Chromebook. And that device will last, first graders through seventh grade, and then in seventh grade, get their new ones that last until they graduate. And I think this might be my last slide, faxing. AT&T is trying to get rid of copper POTS lines, and it's very expensive. The monthly cost on a phone line is $50 to $60 now, I think, a month. I already set up Parkside, Riverview, and Transportation with an IP-based faxing. It's called Sangoma Fax Station, and it works with a web interface. And you can also rent a box for $7 a month to plug into your copier if you want to use the paper and walk up to it and send a fax. But most people like the web interface. The way that they were doing it is they would print something out from their computer, walk up to the fax, send the fax, and then they got a piece of paper, so they just print it. Now they don't even need to print that out. They can just log into the web interface and upload the fax from there, and then they can view all the faxes that have been sent to us and decide to print them out if they want, or they don't have to print out the ones that say you're going to get a cruise for $20 a week, and, so we're not wasting paper. And it's going to save us at least $50 a month per month.
So who's faxing these days?
A lot of schools have to fax, doctors have to fax. Any medical forms, you need to fax them to the doctor's office. Yeah.
So is it in essence a photo image of the document, and it basically is sent almost like an email document, like a FTP something, or?
You're basically, you have the document on your computer, you're uploading it to this website, and then you type in the fax number, and the website actually sends it from there.
You get free trips faxed to us. You get something from our trips from Zanzibar.
Is that what you're doing in
No,
your
no,
retirement?
that's what I get though. Every morning, there's something that is not related to school, that, some kind of great deal.
That's all I have for that. Any questions on any of that?
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I should run with you to run on a child, right?
Yeah, yeah, unfortunately.
Hope they feel better.
Thank you. Seems like it's never ending.
Thank you. That brings us to Treasurer's Report and Committee Update, Finance and Audit Personnel Committee and Strategic Plan Liaison, Mrs. Grassi.
I don't have anything for the strategic plan, but we did have a finance committee meeting on May 11th in the morning. We did talk about mostly the 5-year forecast. We covered the agenda items that are on our agenda for this evening, but we really did review the first draft of the 5-year forecast. Not in major detail, simply because at that point in time, it wasn't really pulled together yet. We had to have a finance committee meeting early this month because I was going to be out of town. So we talked about some of the things on the 5-year forecast that we had talked about in buildings and grounds, and I had asked whether or not some of those things had been included in the 5-year forecast, and at this time, some of them have, some of them have not. So that was purposeful. So that, Mr. Platko will be reviewing the 5-year forecast with us today because it's due by the end of the month. He'll have to upload that to ODE. So he's got that covered. I'm not going to review that in detail. And then we did have a conversation about the fact that we're moving away from the way that we pay our referees and people for sports and whatnot, and we're transitioning to a new system for that. So that was basically it. Do you have anything else?
Thank you. And that brings us for an update from the treasurer, Mr. Placco.
All right, let me pass out a copy of the 5-year forecast and presentation, and I'll give a couple updates before we get into the slides. So just a few, just quick updates. I know we talked about the baseball and softball fields. I had met with the booster groups of both baseball and softball yesterday, just to kind of talk a little bit more about their ideas going forward, because they want to try to fundraise for improvements. Just kind of talk through the different logistics of that, what that could look like in the future, obviously with the facilities plan updates happening and how that correlates to each other. And if they were to get donations to do work, what that would look like, how that would be done properly, and what the options are, depending on the scope of that work. So we kind of had some good discussions, but it's still to be determined how we truly move forward. We're doing the research as far as what improvements would be needed, what cost figures might look like to upgrade the existing fields, or if we were to build new fields, what that would look like, just to kind of get some cost numbers. So when that time comes with the assessments, we can kind of just have some figures to discuss along with, because the facility assessment is more on the facilities, not necessarily on athletic fields. So just kind of get some ideas of what costs might be when we get to that those discussions. Also on tonight's agenda, there's a unique item on there as far as the Flying R Booster Club, which covers track and cross country, are looking to split into 2 separate booster groups, one to cover track and one to cover cross country. So they kind of wanted just a blessing before they go through the process of making that split, because they wanted to make sure they set up things properly, being a 1C3 and filing the Attorney General's office and all those things that booster groups have to do, and they have to determine how to divide funds. So tonight's kind of has an approval of, hey, we recognize you're going to do this, and that we'll consider your approval later on, when it's formally set up. And then lastly, on the, we had the rebid of the vestibule project. If you recall, the first time we opened bids in April, we came in over budget by a lot. We adjusted some of that scope. So when we opened bids on May 19th, the lowest bidder was $1,758,000. And then there was an alternate to replace windows at Buckeye at $525,000 came in. We're currently evaluating the bid, doing some scope reviews. We just want to make sure on the technology side of things that works with the door system and stuff was correct. We were hoping to get a contract on tonight's agenda, but we weren't quite ready to do that yet. There was a little bit of scope that was missed in the drawings. We wanted to get that pricing of what a change order looked like before we could approve anything. Because if we weren't happy with a change order price, we'd probably go out for a bid. So we're working through that, and more to come on that. We do have that grant of $400,000 to go towards this project, and we have a timeline of we have to be under contract by December 31st, and then liquidated by I think either June or September of next year. But at this point, it's too late in the year to have any work done this summer, so we're talking about what the logistics would be of trying to get some work done over some of the breaks or in the summer of next year. And then it takes us to the 5-year forecast presentation. I passed out a copy of the 5-year forecast and slides, just so you don't have to turn around and see the screen. So the 5-year forecast and this presentation will get posted on the treasurer's page on our website. Probably get that posted tomorrow. We also filed with ODE, and it's available on their website. And so some of these slides we kind of go through routinely, starting with just some guidance documents that ODE put out. It's a little outdated at this point, but it's still, most of it's still relevant. A couple of things are not, but there's a guide that kind of explains the different lines of the 5-year forecast and what. The 5-year forecast contains estimates based on the best information available at the time it's prepared, so it's always a moving document. It does change, things change over time. And we filed with the Ohio Department of Education in November and May of each year. It contains 3 previous years of actual data and then 5 years of forecasted data. So we have, we're currently fiscal year 2023, which is coming to a close. That's the first forecasted year, and then we go through 2027. And when I was looking at this presentation before, I realized that the third prior year is actually the year that COVID started. So, that historical data is very different just because of like stimulus funding and budget cuts that happened during that time. So it's really more unique than typical 5-year forecast. But what's important is that the numbers only tell a small part of the story. You need to read the assumptions to understand what truly goes into each of those numbers, because we are making a lot of assumptions in there and things will change. And also the 5-year forecast includes the general fund, the Lake County School Financing District Fund, and not any other funding districts. So like permanent treatment funds are not included there, federal grant funds, things like that. Those are separate from the 5-year forecast. So an executive overview, we are solvent through 2027. We have deficit spending projected to start in fiscal year 2024, which is this coming up fiscal year. Just slightly, it's pretty much close to a break even. We'll kind of talk about that a little more in a minute. The deficit spending is basically our expenditures start to exceed our revenues, and that's on line 6.0 when we're looking at the forecast. Last fiscal year 22, began a new state biennial budget with a new funding formula called the Fair School Funding Plan, so that kind of changed the way things are presented on a 5-year forecast. We're in the second year of that formula. The state budget process is still ongoing. We won't know what our funding looks like July 1st until June 30th, pretty much, when they finalize both the governor and House version. They're continuing to phase in the Fair School Funding Plan, so that's going to just continue. They're on target for a 6-year phase-in, but we can't commit to that because they only do 2-year budget cycles. But as of right now, it looks like things are going to move forward. So this is a very summary of the 5-year forecast year, fiscal year 2023. We started a beginning cash balance of $23.5 million. Revenues are projected at $50.8 million. Expenditures at $48.6 million, which is a revenue surplus of about $2.1 million, which increases our cash balance to $25.7 million. starting in fiscal year 2024, you can see it's close to a break even. You know, time will tell how that truly breaks out, because right now we're not really assuming any increase in state funding. We might see an increase there. You might see an increase in collections for property taxes or other items or reductions. So it's really fluid. The next slide here is a pie graph of our revenue sources. It's a little bit hard to see on the screen, but the large blue section is general property taxes, which makes about $30.4 million, or 60% of our revenue. That's our Class 1 residential and Class 2 commercial. The portion in red, public utility property tax, is just shy of $3 million, or 6% of our revenue. The section in green, unrestricted grants and aid, $7.2 million, 14% of our revenue. And that's basically our state funding formula makes up that number. And also, we get casino revenue as well. The casino revenue is about $240,000 of that number. The other $7 million is our state funding. Restricted grants and aid is $451,000, or 1%, and that's still funding from the state of Ohio, but restricted for certain purposes such as career tech, discipline advantage, mutual aid, student loans, success funds. And then the more teal-looking section there, property tax allocations, a little deceiving. It's actually the homestead rollback reimbursements from the state of Ohio, but that's how ODE classifies it. That's $3.7 million, or 7% of our revenue. And then all other revenues in orange, $5.3 million, or 11% of our revenue. That includes the Lake County School Financing District, which makes up about $3.3 million of that number. The rest is any other revenue source, classroom fees, pay to participate fees, interest revenue, which interest revenue is pretty significant now with interest rates in the 5% range. And then all other financing sources are basically things like refunds of prior expenditures. So we get what's called the catastrophic cost reimbursement from the state of Ohio, which is around $450,000. It's in there for special education expenses that exceed certain thresholds based on what classification the student is. With property taxes being our most significant revenue stream, I always have this slide here. It just kind of shows the different levies that are in effect. Total, I won't go through this in detail, we do this on a pretty regular basis, but our total general fund millage is 26.7 mil of effective millage. We have the permanent improvement fund, which is collecting at 1.97 mils, and then the phase 1 debt from Parkside Elementary School construction is 1.35 mils, for a total effective millage of 30.02 mils. What does that mean? Just looking at a comparison to school district tax rates in Lake County, Riverside continues to be the third lowest. Areas at the bottom in nuclear power plants, they're not a good comparable, but in Madison's usually, Riverside and Madison tend to be close together. It kind of depends on who passed the last operating levy. These rates don't include Lake County School Financing District rate of 1.94 that applies to Riverside, Madison, Terry, and Kansas City. Community factor was increased in those districts. We're still in the same place that we was. On the expenditure side, if you were to take this pie chart and create it for every school district in the state of Ohio, they all look fairly similar to each other, with personnel services, which are salaries, and employee benefits making up the lion's share of that. So personnel makes up $27.4 million of our budget, or 56%. Employee retirement and insurance benefits, $11.3 million, or 23%. And then purchase services, which is includes utilities, purchase contracts, typically at $7.2 million, 15%, and then supplies, $1.6 million, or 4%. The few categories there are fairly easy. The last slide here, or second last slide, ending cash balance and true days. So we adopted a cash balance policy. Just to kind of formalize at what point do we start to take action. What's an appropriate cash balance to address the payment. And so the board believes that maintaining the general fund cash reserve balance of 90 days, true cash is necessary in the interest of sound fiscal management. and the board should take appropriate action as 2 fiscal years prior to the fiscal year in which general fund cash balance days are not targets. So if you look at kind of in the middle, the estimate, the fourth column, this fiscal year 2023, we're at 190 days cash balance, and we can see because we start deficit spending, that starts to decline with fiscal year 2027 going at 58 days. So that's getting below our desired cash balance, but that's still several years out. And keep in mind, this is, 5-year forecast is like your weather forecast, the 7-day forecast. If you go down to having the 7th day, you wait 7 days, things will change over time. And so it's likely that will change. We'll continue to update that twice a year, and we'll monitor that to see how things go. And then lastly, what could change? Just kind of, I always like to point out that things that we're keeping our eye on. Property tax collections and valuation of the county staff in the next 6-year reappraisal might go into effect for tax year 24, I believe, collection year 25. And so what that might look like, we're not really sure at this point. We'll kind of keep an eye on that. And then the state budget process, knowing that we still don't know what's going to happen as of July 1st. Phasing is likely to continue, but other tweaks could change. I know in the House version of the budget, they have increased the transportation funding, which is outside of the guarantee, so that's indeed an increase we would see now. And then interest revenue, interest rates have skyrocketed over the last year. We're currently getting around 5.2%, stuff which we haven't seen in a long time. And will that continue with our other investment account? We're kind of locking in investments, multi-year investments for 4.5%. We know it's going to come back down, so we might lose a little today, but be more in the future years. Things kind of modern how it's going to go. And on the expenditure side, just maintaining our staffing levels, what that looks like each year based on enrollment. The federal stimulus funds and the CASA funds are going to run out here next year. So we're currently funding our safety officers. Those funds are going to just year 25. And then this future healthcare cost and rate increases with that, obviously. And this, purchase services and supply with the effects of inflation. And lastly, this new housing development we all aware of, but there's also other housing developments in our community and changes made. Any questions?
You included the security personnel in the years that they're gonna start getting the budget.
Yes,
You did that.
there's an
Great.
increase in 25. And it's not all of them on the ESSER funds, it's only the additional elementary schools and the ones that we use in the high school on general fund.
I just want to remind the board again of our 90-day cash requirement that would put us in the year of 25, the 25 fiscal year, which is not this coming school year, but the year after that. Then we would, our resolution indicated that we would start having those conversations 2 years prior. So that would put us into that year. I just want everybody to keep that in mind, that that's going to be looming on our horizon at some point. So we talk about the cash balance in the finance meeting all the time. So
It's hard to believe the last operating levy was 2017, so it was already 6 years ago. Time flies. It's just amazing. It's in the news just yesterday.
So just continue to monitor that. So.
Any other questions?
So when, after the biennial budget is done, can you revisit this in July or August so we can get a sense of what's going on?
Typically, it takes ODE up to 3 months to update their payment reports, so they basically continue our funding at the same level as they reprogram their system. Now,
So
with
you're
the
saying
last changes,
October?
right, it'll be October, and we're already starting to update at that point. When they changed the formulas in the current formula, it took 6 months, something took 9 months to implement, but if they're continuing the same formula, they should have it fairly sooner, but we usually don't see that until September, October anyways, because we see what the true numbers look like.
And then we update this again in November
Yes.
and then submit it again. So.
Any other questions? All right. That brings us to public comment. So anyone wishing to address the Board of Education will be recognized by the board president. Speakers are requested to identify themselves and their topic. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Anyone, public comment?
Hi, I'm Don Tenney, the OPSI local president here. Last meeting you guys had, there was an issue with a board member not following board policies that you guys had agreed to follow, and it was discussed that there was no real way to enforce that. And I guess my question is, how are you going to expect to enforce your policies on the staff when the board itself doesn't follow these policies? And that's it. Thank you.
Any other public comment? All right, thank you. That brings us to the consent agenda. First on is finance and audit.
Sure, we have a motion to approve the items listed on the finance and audit consent agenda as recommended by the treasurer, items A through P. A second.
Second.
Thank you. I'm going to read the donations before we have any other conversation. We have 48 6-inch sandwich gift cards from Concord Subway for Beaver Bravo winners from the month of April, so thank you to them. Do we have any other discussion on any of the agenda items?
Yeah, can somebody remind me of what the Alliance for High Quality Education group is?
So they're an organization that we're a member of, we've been a member of them for many years, and it's more of the,
It's an advocacy.
it's an advocacy group. It's basically the higher wealth districts, as we say, districts like ours that don't get a lot of state funding, they go and they advocate for things on our behalf, not just funding wise, but other educational issues.
So mostly they engage down in Columbus then, or?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, well then can we call the roll, Mr. Flannery?
Belinda Grassi,
Aye.
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Tom Heck,
Aye.
Lori Kniske.
Aye. Motion carried. That brings us to personnel.
Sure, we have a motion to approve the items listed on the personnel consent agenda as recommended by the superintendent's items A through K. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hare. I mean, there's quite a lot of items on our personnel agenda this month, but these are mostly routine items, so. All right, well then can we call the roll?
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Tom Heck,
Aye.
Lori Kniske,
Aye.
Belinda Grassi.
Aye.
Motion carried. Consent agenda for curriculum and programming.
Make a motion to approve the items listed on the curriculum and programming consent agenda as recommended by the superintendent, items A through E. Is there any discussion?
Second.
Sorry, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Can you call the roll, please?
Tom Heck,
Aye.
Lori Kniske,
Aye.
Belinda Grassi,
Aye.
Scott Fishel.
Aye.
Motion carried. That brings us to buildings and grounds.
Motion to approve the items listed on the buildings and grounds consent agenda, items A to C, as recommended by the superintendent. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mrs. Grassi. Any discussion?
Yeah, I just had a question. We've actually come to an agreement with Bialowski.
Yes.
Okay.
The agreement, Lori, a lot of the staff paper Lori has.
Okay. I know that when we had talked, we had said that we were going to try and make sure that we could get that on the agenda, but I didn't hear any updates, so I'm just assuming that was done.
Terrific. Were there any
Hiccups?
changes or hiccups or?
There was just a few minor changes in the, it was listed in the scope of work in the statement of qualifications that was on the contract. Some of the liability clauses, they had proposed something that we couldn't agree to, so they didn't proceed any further, and just, there was just a little bit of that legal stuff with Dan McIntyre, went through all that, and most of these minor tweaks.
And do we have a start date?
We're looking at getting a kickoff meeting, but they're gonna do it this summer. We have the contract, we just complete everything by September 30th. We're gonna meet, we talked about possibly doing one of the assessments first, and then doing the other 3 concurrently, just to save time and to make sure that what they're producing is what we expect before they do everything. But we're gonna have a kickoff meeting here in early June, and we'll see how that goes. And they're ready to go, so it's, we have staff meeting, and I expect we'll definitely do the field work over the summer, and definitely report shortly.
Terrific, thank you. Any other discussion? Can you call the roll, please?
Lori Kniske,
Aye.
Linda Grassi,
Aye.
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Tom Heck.
Aye.
Motion carried. Brings us to the Board of Education update. Any updates?
No comments, it's Friday. 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
That's when it starts. And we're there a little early.
6:55.
Any other updates? Okay. Make a motion to adjourn to executive session for personnel at 8:03 p.m. for personnel matters, appointment and or employment, discipline, compensation. Can I get a second?
Second.
Can you call roll, Nicole?
Linda Grassi,
Aye.
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Tom Heck,
Aye.
Lori Kniske.
Aye, motion carried.